The month of May in Indianapolis is an experience unlike any other. It culminates each year with the Indianapolis 500, the world's largest single-day sporting event. For more than 100 years on Memorial Day weekend, hundreds of thousands of people crowd into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway's massive grandstands for the greatest spectacle in racing. But how did it get started? The Indianapolis Motor Speedway was built in the spring of 1909 on 328 acres of farmland northwest of downtown Indianapolis. Carl Fisher and 3 other Indianapolis businessmen originally built the Speedway as a testing facility for Indiana's automobile industry. When the original surface of crushed rock and tar proved to be disastrous, 3.2 million bricks were laid to become the track's new surface, inspiring the nickname the Brickyard. Most of those original bricks remain today under the Speedway's modern asphalt, with only 3 feet exposed at the start-finish line, now known as the Yard of Bricks. The first competition held at the Speedway was a balloon race in 1909. Motorcycle and automobile races soon followed with limited success until Fisher decided to focus on just one major event. In 1911, 80,000 fans saw Ray Haroon win the first Indianapolis 500-mile race with an average speed of over 74 miles an hour. The race began the process of transforming the Indianapolis 500 into a grand spectacle of international dimensions. Over the years, the Indianapolis 500 has become the world's premier auto racing event and has attracted competitors and fans from all over the globe. World War I shut down the Speedway in 1917 and 18, and when the race resumed in 1919, Howdy Wilcox won the race and became the first driver to break the 100-mile-per-hour barrier. In 1927, Fisher and his partners sold the Speedway to a group led by World War I flying ace Eddie Rickenbacker, who had driven in 4 Indy 500s 10 years earlier. In 1936, Louis Meyer became the Indy 500's first 3-time winner. He was also the first driver to receive the world-famous Borg-Warner Trophy, and he began the tradition of drinking milk in Victory Lane. In the early 1940s, the Speedway sat closed for nearly 4 long years due to World War II. This once proud facility was in terrible shape until Tony Hulman, a successful businessman from Terre Haute, bought the Speedway in 1945 for a recorded $750,000. Renovations and repairs were made at a quick pace in an effort to ready for the 1946 race.
The crowd has grown to over 150,000, and still they come from all over the country.
Throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s, Tony Hulman guided the Speedway through a period of tremendous change and international prestige. The prestige that began to surround the Indianapolis 500 led the way to creation of the 500 Festival, with the goal of further connecting the state of Indiana and the city of Indianapolis to the greatest race in the world. A number of those events and programs, such as the 500 Festival Parade, the Princess Program, the Memorial Service, and the Governor's Ball, now known as the Snake Pit Ball, still exist today, more than 60 years later. More than 150,000 spectators lined the parade route during the first evening parade that included a number of entertainers who still participate. Later that evening, several thousand spectators stayed downtown for a public dance on Monument Circle, and more than 500 people attended the Indiana Roof Ballroom for the first Governor's Ball. That year was such a success, they raised more than $10,000, which gave them the funds to start planning for the 1958 festival and beyond. In the early 1960s, as the cars evolved and the speeds kept rising, Parnelli Jones was the first to exceed 150 miles an hour in 1962. A.J. Foyt's win in 1964 was the last for a front-engine racer at Indy. Mario Andretti raced in 29 Indy 500s but drove to victory lane only once in 1969. 1977 was a big year for both the 500 Festival and the Indianapolis 500. For the first time, the 500 Festival Mini Marathon lapped the famed Indianapolis Motor Speedway with just 800 runners led by Olympic champion Frank Shorter. The Indy Mini has now come to be the premier and oftentimes largest half marathon in the nation. With more than 35,000 participants, runners and walkers alike start in downtown Indianapolis, heading out to the Speedway for a lap and return back downtown for a fantastic finish. Out at the Speedway that same year, Tom Sneva finally broke the 200-mile-per-hour barrier. A.J. Foyt became the 500's first four-time winner. And Janet Guthrie became the first female driver in 500 history. In 1982, Gordon Johncock edged out Rick Mears to win the 500. At the time, it was the closest finish ever, 16/100ths of a second. Al Unser won the race for the fourth time in 1987 and became the oldest driver to win at Indy, just 5 days shy of his 48th birthday. Tony George became president of the Speedway in 1990. Tony Hulman's grandson led the way at Indy for nearly 20 years. In 1991, Willie T. Ribbs made history as the first African-American driver to race in the Indianapolis 500. And Rick Mears became Indy's third four-time winner. The next year, 1992, Al Unser Jr. beat Scott Goodyear by the closest margin ever, 43 thousandths of a second. NASCAR arrived at the Speedway in August of 1994 for the inaugural Brickyard 400. 2 years later, Dale Jarrett won the Brickyard and started the tradition of kissing the bricks. In 2000, Formula One started its 8-year run in Indy for the United States Grand Prix. Helio Castroneves became the only driver in history to take the checkered flag in his first 2 Indy 500 starts, winning back-to-back in 2001 and 2002. He brought the tradition of climbing the fence to the Speedway.
Danica Patrick going side by side with Weldon. She'll be the leader in turn number 1.
My goodness, they're 3 wide, but Patrick's got the lead.
Danica Patrick became the first female driver to lead the Indy 500 in 2005. She led 19 laps before finishing in 4th place. Sam Hornish Jr. and Marco Andretti, Mario Andretti's grandson, battled to the finish line in 2006.
Can a teenager win in Indianapolis? Sam Hornish Jr. makes the pass, they'll win it!
At the time, it was the second closest finish in history, finishing 63 thousandths of a second apart. The Speedway returned to its roots in 2008 by hosting the Red Bull Indianapolis GP, the first motorcycle race at the track in nearly 100 years. In 2010, a record 4 women raced in the Indianapolis 500. Anna Beatrice, Simona de Silvestro, Sarah Fisher, and Danica Patrick all took the green flag at Indy. 2014 marked the inaugural Grand Prix of Indianapolis. For the first time, Indy cars made their way around the road course in May, just 2 weeks before the Indy 500. That same year kicked off the first of a few photo finishes at the Yard of Bricks in a row. Ryan Hunter-Reay was victorious over Helio Castroneves by 6 thousandths of a second. In 2015, Juan Pablo Montoya narrowly defeated Will Power by 10/100ths of a second. And in 2016, Alexander Rossi became the first rookie to win the Indianapolis 500 since Helio Castroneves in 2001. With more than 100 years of history at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and 60 years worth of memories created by the 500 festival events and programs, the history of the Indianapolis 500 is continually rewriting itself. From the 500 Festival Education Program and its 25,000 fourth grade participants annually, to the 500 Festival Kids Fit program encouraging all Indiana K through 6th grade students to lead a healthy, active lifestyle, and the 500 Festival's newest event each fall, the Mini Mini. There are parts of the Indianapolis 500 that can be enjoyed by everyone. Each year, 35,000 participants compete in the 500 Festival Mini Marathon and 5K. Spectators cheer on the Indy cars as they take to the road course at the Speedway during the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. Some 40,000 spectators enjoy the state's largest free festival for children, the 500 Festival Kids Day and Rookie Run on Monument Circle. Throughout the month, we get to witness the drivers of Indy cars tuning their skills and cars during practice and qualification days at the track. Mayors from around the state come together in celebration of the annual tradition at the 500 Festival Breakfast at the Brickyard. We honor the men and women who have served this great nation at the 500 Festival Memorial Service. More than 300,000 spectators line the streets of downtown Indy to enjoy the nation's third largest parade. Each year, a sellout crowd gets dressed up and welcomes celebrities to the 500 Festival Snake Pit Ball. Then at the end of the month of May, the 33 500 Festival Princesses welcome the crowd with a ceremonial lap before the race, which leads to the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500.